and the Titans might have just struck gold here. I mean, he made that incredible catch down the sideline, like the helmet catch, and then he scored his first career touchdown on a play that I'm sure Brian Callahan told Cam Ward. He's like, hey, congratulations, awesome. Never do that again. It was Cam Ward rolling all the way to his right and throwing all the way across his body, and Ayomanor got underneath the ball.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
Week 3 fantasy football, waiver wire pickups, and deep sleepers you need to know about to crush your leagues this week. 2 weeks already in the books. We're recording this before Monday Night Football's games. The really awful news drop yesterday, guys. We're watching Sunday Night Football. We get the Joe Burrow injury. At first, we hear turf toe. We say, okay, let's get through these next 4 weeks or so. Then we hear multiple big-name NFL reporters like Ian Rappaport and certainly others close to the Cincinnati Bengals saying that this could end up being 12 games. Joe Burrow is going to miss 3 months of football. Tom Brawley, is Daniel Jones the savior on the waiver wire for Joe Burrow-led teams?
He's certainly looking like it. We talked him up on the show last week, and we wanted to see it against a good defense. He beat up the Miami Dolphins in week 1. They smashed them, but the Broncos were coming to town, and we kind of said it would be the litmus test for Daniel Jones, and I'd say he passed. He led him on a game-winning drive and put up over 300 yards against one of the best defenses in the league last year, and one that had shut down the Titans the week before in week 1. So another 22 fantasy points for him. I think this looks real. We really like the receiving core that he has. Tyler Warren, Joe and I got to watch him a lot playing for Penn State the last couple of years, and he's an absolute bull in the middle of the field. They have Alec Pierce stretching the field, Michael Pittman working the intermediate areas, and Josh Downs working out of the slot. So 4 receivers that we really like a lot, and the system, it's kind of perfect for him, and it's definitely the best situation that Daniel Jones has been in his career. So, and he looks healthy again. He had the ACL injury in 2023. He's moving around pretty well, and the one thing that is really working in his favor here, we've seen it with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia the last couple of years. Shane Steichen coming from the Eagles. He's getting these opportunities right on top of the goal line from the 1-yard line. He has 3 rushing touchdowns from the 1-yard line in just 2 games. So I think Daniel Jones has legitimate potential here to get to double-digit rushing touchdowns this season. So I wanted to kind of see it. I added him in a couple of spots where I was hurting at quarterback. I had Brock Purdy on a team or two. 14-team league, I also picked him up where I was a little bit concerned with Dak Prescott. So, but I mean, he's still widely available in Yahoo leagues, only 17% owned. People weren't completely trusting what they saw in week 1, but I think after what he did against the Broncos, he has to be in the weekly top 12 quarterback conversation right now.
Yeah, this is not going to be us victory lapping every single week, but we told you to pick up Daniel Jones. We've talked about this for a couple of weeks now. Jonathan Taylor playing exceptional football. Joe, This feels like the team where every single year we find a team in fantasy where there's multiple players who beat their ADP. Daniel Jones leading the charge. Heading into Monday Night Football, Daniel Jones is the QB2 on the season.
Yeah, and doing this against Denver makes me notice. Now, I'm not going to lie and say we haven't seen this before. We've seen him play well for stretches, but I think I'm going to buy right now. And, you have to readjust your expectations. And the thing is about being somebody who, and I advocated waiting on quarterback this year. It was something that I preferred to do. The thing about that is, you understand some of your targets maybe aren't going to hit in the middle of the draft. Drake May didn't have a great week 1, had a great week 2. JJ McCarthy had an awesome 4th quarter in week 1 and hasn't played well otherwise. you have to readjust your expectations, right? And just say, oh, you don't have to wait now for JJ McCarthy to break out. You can go and see if Daniel Jones is truly the guy playing better. You can use him from a fantasy football perspective. I'd prefer him right now just because Daniel Jones has seen some of the slings and arrows of the NFL and doesn't necessarily have the growing pains that a JJ McCarthy is going to have. So I think he's a top 12 quarterback until further notice. That further notice has bitten us in the past, but I do believe that Daniel Jones has an opportunity to be a steady force for your fantasy lineup. And maybe it's 4 weeks, maybe it's 6 weeks, maybe it's like Sam Darnold and it's the entire season. Regardless, he's worth looking for in lineups right now.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, and I'll double down on the Sam Darnold one. This is, I think, Daniel Jones's year. I think we see a top 12 QB finish. I love Tom's take on the rushing touchdowns, getting to double digits, and also the schedule, guys. We got by Denver. Next few weeks could be a lot more fantasy friendly. They play Tennessee. They play the LA Rams. They have a home game against Vegas, a home game against Arizona, another tough defense, but those home environments in the indoor environment, everybody's healthy. Indianapolis, I think, is maybe this year's breakout offense. Love Daniel Jones there. Now, there's some leagues where Daniel Jones is going to be rostered, and specifically in superflex formats. In superflex formats, you maybe don't get a better QB option all year long than Jake Browning. Jake Browning, we saw it in 2023. Browning had 4 wins filling in for Joe Burrow. And more importantly to us as fantasy managers, he had 9 starts, and in 5 of them, he gave us QB1 finishes. Not saying he's Joe Burrow or anywhere near it, but he's a functional starting quarterback in the NFL who I think will keep his fantasy weapons afloat and put up some decent numbers himself. Start with you, Joe. Your expectations for Browning, is this a push the chips in one for superflex managers specifically?
I think it is because with Joe Burrow missing 3 months, and I just retweeted Dr. David Chow on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, at Pro Football Doc. He said the reported 3-month return timeline for Joe Burrow is very optimistic. While there's some hope since the turf toe is on his front foot, this type of injury is effectively season ending. So there is a chance that Joe Burrow doesn't play the rest of the year. Now, I think the fact that the Bengals are 2-0 increases the chances that Joe Burrow comes back at a later date. But here's the thing about Jake Browning. You mentioned the fantasy numbers. This is exactly the kind of backup quarterback you want to target for fantasy football. He is a gunslinger. He will throw the ball to his good players. We saw it with Jamar Chase. We saw it with T. Higgins getting touchdowns from him. But on the other hand, he also throws the ball to the other team. What does that mean? Well, yeah, if you get penalized for interceptions, that sucks. But it also means he's probably going to have to be throwing the ball a lot in order to keep the team afloat. And we already know the Bengals don't have a great defense. So this is a guy who could be a high volume passer in addition to somebody who can run around a little bit, and he's got these great receivers. So obviously this sucks for the Bengals. I'm not trying to spin this as a positive, but I think you can get a start-worthy fantasy quarterback out of this with Jake Browning, and I don't think he's a killer for their weapons by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, we've seen him succeed just a couple of years ago in 2023 when Burrow was out. The numbers were pretty strong, as Joe said. Turned the ball over a lot, but they also still had a lot of volume in the offense, averaged 267 passing yards per game. He even ran a little bit, right around 13 rushing yards per game. So averaged overall 20.1 fantasy points per game. So I think he could at least give you some like mid QB2 potential here. Maybe he can sneak into that like low end, depending on the matchup. But a lot of the same reasons why we like Joe Burrow so much in the offseason still holds true here for Jake Browning. Obviously, he's a much lesser player than Joe Burrow, but he still has Jamar Chase to throw to. He's gonna make plays for him. T. Higgins, we saw yesterday, making a downfield reception and bouncing off a couple of defenders and scoring a long touchdown. So he still has those 2 guys to throw to. We still have our concerns about this defense in Cincinnati. They're going to be still playing in a lot of high-scoring games. So a lot of the situational stuff that we liked a lot for Joe Burrow still holds true here with Jake Browning. So, we're not going to get the top 5 potential that we had with Burrow, but maybe we can get like top 12 potential with Jake Browning. So just need that offensive line to do its part, give him enough time. But I think he can at least give you a mid QB2 potential here for the next 3 months or however long it's going to be here with Joe Burrow's injury.
Yeah, and I think you made both of you made some fantastic points. I think that the big takeaway is the offensive ecosystem for Cincinnati is there for Browning to have fantasy football success. And a lot of times where we get the backup quarterback, we see teams adjust their game plan. That's not in Cincinnati's nature here, where the Bengals, I think, are going to continue to sling the ball. They're 2-0 on the season. Their entire salary cap is invested in those big two receivers and Joe Burrow. This is a huge, huge test for Browning, but I will be willing to bet that in Superflex, he's the addition of the year at the quarterback spot, unless we get something like a Jalen Milroe to talk about in a couple of weeks, guys. That's looking less and less likely. But when it comes down to it, I think Jake Browning, if you're a Superflex manager, you don't like your QB2 spot, push the chips in. This is a 50% plus addition in all Superflex formats. And in single QB leagues, because of the game flow for Cincinnati, I'd start him over a number of other quarterbacks if I was in desperation mode. I'll quickly mention, we talked about him last week at length. We are recording this before Monday Night Football. Geno Smith, a viable option, had 360 passing yards last week. He's been rostered in some leagues, but probably a little bit similar to Daniel Jones about in terms of his roster percentage. Let's talk about a couple of deep cuts, and these can go for Superflex managers. Spencer Rattler and Mac Jones both put up decent stat lines. Dare I say it, Spencer Rattler doesn't look so bad, guys, through 2 weeks. Mac Jones, was first start in San Francisco. That's a little bit more of a short-term addition. Joe, very quickly, interested in either one of these guys?
Honestly, I'm more interested in Mac Jones if I need a player right now. Spencer Rattler looks fine, but I think Rattler there's like an 11 of 28, 113 yard, 2 interception game coming from Rattler. But I was impressed with him against San Francisco. I just think Mac Jones is more of a plug and play option right now. As a matter of fact, we saw with his performance against the Saints why it was reported that Kyle Shanahan was into him during the NFL draft, and then at the last minute pivoted to Trey Lance. Interestingly enough, as soon as next week, Mac Jones can pass Trey Lance on the 49ers all-time passing touchdowns list.
No.
He's got 3. Trey Lance has 5. So I think that's a fun little observation. But right now, if I had to start a guy this week, Mac Jones, but Superflex, maybe Spencer Rattler. This is the start of him holding on to that job all year.
Yeah, I really like Mac Jones as like a 1 week streamer if you need him. It does sound like Adam Schefter, reported on Sunday that it's looking unlikely for Purdy to return in week 3. The Arizona matchup is looking a little easier this week. We saw at the end of last week, Bryce Young was throwing it all over the field against them and led a little bit of a furious comeback. But Cardinals, they lost 3 of their top cornerbacks in that game. Max Melton goes down, Will Johnson goes down, and Garrett Williams. So a lot of injuries in that secondary. And as we saw in week 2, Kyle Shanahan didn't change his game plan at all. We're running the same offense here with Mac Jones, and he gave us like a light version of what Brock Purdy can do. So we're not going to get the rushing production that Purdy gives us a little bit, but I do think, as a 1 week streamer, Juwan Jennings was healthy in that game too. He looked great. So legitimate weapons there. We wish we had George Kittle, but as a 1 week streamer, I kind of like Mac Jones this week.
Yeah, and one other note, guys, Justin Fields is in the concussion protocol. Tyrod Taylor projected to start this week for the Jets. Any interest in streaming Tyrod Taylor? We can go very quickly. Would you use Tyrod or one of the 2 quarterbacks we just mentioned, Joe?
I would use Mac Jones over Tyrod.
Yeah,
Tyrod is going to be a DFS, presuming they play on the main slate. I don't know that. It seems they do. Yes, they play on the main slate. I think Tyrod will be very popular.
Yeah, I'm with Joe here. With 1 week play here, I would go with Mac Jones here.
I'm with you guys. Mac Jones for sure for me. All right, sort of another victory lap time. A lot of waiver wire content's available to people, but not everybody was talking about Troy Franklin and Elic Ayomanor last week. We talked about them sort of at length. Let's start out with Ayomanor, because Ayomanor, we saw him tie for the lead in targets for Tennessee this week. The usage in week 1 was outstanding. This week, we see him find the end zone, 4 catches, somewhat limited by the quality of the Tennessee offense, but this is a major opportunity for a young wide receiver with a lot of juice athletically. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a guy Brett Whitefield loved before the draft, and now it appears that he fell to the 4th round because of health issues, and the Titans might have just struck gold here. I mean, he made that incredible catch down the sideline, like the helmet catch, and then he scored his first career touchdown on a play that I'm sure Brian Callahan told Cam Ward. He's like, hey, congratulations, awesome. Never do that again. It was Cam Ward rolling all the way to his right and throwing all the way across his body, and Ayomanor got underneath the ball. But, I mean, this is a starting wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, and all they need, Theo, for this to continue, Ayomanor being on that kind of wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 fringe, maybe even better than that, is to continue to get competent quarterback play out of Cam Ward. I think we've gotten that through 2 games. As a matter of fact, I think Cam Ward, there's an expectation that he can improve throughout the course of the season. The run game hasn't been great thus far, but here's the other thing that Cam Ward's doing. Guys, he's throwing the ball down the field. The Titans have only 2 targets to running backs so far this year. So Cam Ward wants to aggressively attack outside the numbers and down the field, and Ayomanor has been that guy for them. He has been one of the most impressive rookies so far, and I think he should be rostered in every league at this point, of a reasonable size in 12-team or better.
Yeah. Tom, before you answer this one, I'll give you a big shout out to the Fantasy Points data team who we're recording this Monday morning. Brett Whitefield and the team gets everything up super, super early for us. Here's a great stat for you. The first read rate for Calvin Ridley and Elic Ayomanor tied at 26.8%. So I guess Cam Ward didn't get the memos this offseason that Calvin Ridley was supposed to be this year's Terry McLaurin. This might be Elic Ayomanor the last week we can sort of buy him low on the waiver wire.
Yeah, just 8% owned right now in Yahoo leagues. We told you a little bit about him last week. Didn't have the big performance, tough matchup against the Broncos. Another tough matchup this past week against the Rams, and he came through. So schedule's going to get a little bit easier here moving forward, getting those 2 tough matchups out of the way. And he's gaining more experience. As Joe said, our fantasy points data has Cam Ward at an 8.4 yard ADOT right now. So he's chucking the ball down the field, which is what we want with an X receiver like Ayomanor. We want downfield passes, and we want those opportunities in the end zone with the big receiver, which he got on that scramble play. So continues, Calvin Ridley too. This guy I was kind of into during the draft, the 6th round, it felt like a safe play and maybe some upside if Cam Ward plays well. And he continues just to be kind of a little bit underwhelming since he's come back, at least with Tennessee here since last season. So maybe there's some room to challenge Calvin Ridley to be the number 1 wide receiver by the middle of the season, maybe by the end of the season. And that could be the point when Cam Ward starts to, we saw with like Bo Nix last year, got off to a really slow start and really took off in the second half of the season. If Ward follows a similar type of trajectory where he starts to improve a little bit by mid-season and maybe he starts to take off by the end of the season, maybe Ayomanor could be that guy, that number 1 wide receiver by the end of the season. So not a whole lot of competition behind him. This is a guy that you want rostered with some high upside here later in the season.
Yeah, and also like when we talk about Calvin Ridley's old. These older wide receivers that are not hitting right away, it doesn't always happen. This could be a situation where Ayomanor's usage trends up and Ridley's usage just sort of stays the same, and he ends up being sort of an ADP bust. Ayomanor ends up being a steal. So we talked about Ayomanor. He on his side in this argument is the target competition is so limited that he has a chance to really, really help us. There's another player here, guys, that I'm really, really enthusiastic about adding if he's available, and he is widely available in a ton of leagues. Troy Franklin is off to an unbelievable start. 16.2 points per game, guys. That's more than Marvin Harrison Jr., more than Ricky Pearsall, more than Keon Coleman, trailing only Roma Dunze when it comes to these year 2 wide receiver breakout candidates. I think he took advantage of an ambiguous Denver Broncos wide receiver room with guys like Pat Bryant, guys like Marvin Mims, and it's sort of running away with it. We also saw Franklin, who we talked about last week as an addition, guys, not to keep victory lapping. We saw him have an outstanding preseason. He had a 2 touchdown catch game in the preseason. And here's a couple of more stats from Fantasy Points data. If you want to level your fantasy game up this season, subscribe to Fantasy Points data or any of our amazing packages available at Fantasy Points. Use the code Theo for 15% off. But for Troy Franklin, these numbers are great, guys. 21.4% target share, 41.8% air yard share, 24.4 first read rate. And he has this one kind of blew my mind a little bit, Joe, 33.3% designed target rate. I mean, the ADOT's good, the targets per route run, everything is there. And he was a mega productive player at Oregon, attached to Bo Nix. He led the nation with 14 touchdown catches in 2023. You talked about how Elic Ayomanor was sort of a Moneyball pick for Tennessee, where they got him at that value because of the injuries. Troy Franklin was a terrible combine producer, ends up now with the locker room narrative with Bo Nix. I'm enthusiastic about this one. Where are you at?
I'm enthusiastic as well. My concern is Sean Payton, right? This was a Sean Payton box score for the Broncos in week number 2. 5 different Broncos carried the football. 10 different Broncos caught a football in that game. Wow. That's Sean Payton to a T. And I want to know if this was team specific for Indianapolis or this is a trend going forward, because let's just look simply at for a base number, snap share, 59% for Troy Franklin, all the way up to 83% in week number 2. He was at 59% in week number 1. Is that something that's going to continue, or is that something that's going to fluctuate from week to week? It's the only thing that's really making me keeping me from prioritizing Franklin over Ayomanor if I need a wide receiver. But these 2 guys are the 2 guys I'm most excited about in one quarterback leagues adding this week. And I think Franklin's probably, Tom, going to be in the better offense. I know Bo Nix, he certainly played a little better in week 2 than he did in week 1. He's going to be in the better offense, but with the better offense comes the Sean Payton shenanigans, where next week he's got to get Pat Bryant going, or they're going to throw the ball to the backup tight end. And those things are coming, but Troy Franklin was certainly somebody worth getting excited about.
Yeah, and a lot of people drafted Marvin Mims, in that like middle to late end of the draft, thinking that maybe he could be this guy that's the number 2 wide receiver. And he flashed a little bit at the end of last season, and he was the guy getting designed targets, but it's kind of been the opposite. Sean Payton was playing Mims a lot in the preseason, but when the regular season started, it's been more Troy Franklin in that number 2 wide receiver spot. And they gave us a little bit of signal by trading away Devon Vele to the Saints, and that should have been maybe more of a signal to everybody that Troy Franklin was going to have a bigger role in the offense this season. But this is very encouraging here. Just looking through some of the numbers in week 2, up to an 84% route share. He actually kind of lapped Courtland Sutton, who's always been that number 1 wide receiver guy in this offense since last season. He was down at 59% of the routes. So we'll see if that continues. Maybe, whenever they're in single wide receiver sets, maybe this is a role that Franklin maybe kind of stealing from Courtland Sutton. We also love the design targets, 4 design targets in week 2 here. So taking advantage of it. And as you said, the Bo Nix connection there, that certainly helps. That whenever Bo Nix is struggling a little bit, or he's going to go to Troy Franklin or Courtland Sutton. But a lot of positives here. But yeah, Joe, I am with you a little bit. I know Sean Payton at any time can get into his bag of tricks. So that's why I have Ayomanor just a little bit ahead of Franklin right now. But I don't blame anybody for putting in pretty similar fab bids for both of these guys.
And Tom, I think that's the best takeaway. I think that you pick a horse in this race, and get one of these two guys if they're available in your leagues. I think when we talk about this 3 weeks from now, it's going to be laughable. Both of them are going to be highly rostered. For me, I'm going to slightly lean Franklin because of the quality of the offense. And I think that Denver's ability to support multiple weapons there. Tennessee, there's going to be a few more games where they're really kind of stuck in the mud. I love Ayomanor as well. So I think you put bids in for both of these players, be super aggressive. And guys, year 2 breakouts, we love seeing these guys break out in year 2. That's where we find a lot of the biggest fantasy football wins are rookies to beat ADP and these year 2 breakout players. I'm going to mention now quickly, Wan'Dale Robinson is still available to you in 78% of Yahoo leagues. Some deeper formats he's rostered, a lot of FFPC, NFFC leagues type rostered. But Wan'Dale, despite being like the most highly targeted guy ever last year that did nothing with it, he's still a player that was sort of left out there. We talked about him last week as well, guys, as another ad, off to a red hot start target-wise once again. And yesterday had just an unbelievable performance. The story of the day was Malik Neighbors and Russell Wilson, but we saw Robinson have really the best game he's ever had as a pro. Your enthusiasm level for Robinson after this big game in week 2?
I'm still a little skeptical about him, like all of a sudden being a deep threat. I mean, 17-yard A dot yesterday, something that we just haven't seen from him throughout his career. But it's with Russell Wilson, who likes to attack more down the field. So maybe this is something that's going to be kind of added into his arsenal a little bit. But he does give us those nice floor games. He sees a ton of targets most weeks, and we just haven't seen a whole lot of upside from him until this past week. So still kind of down the depth chart a little bit, but they'll be playing from behind most weeks. So they'll be playing 3 wide receivers a lot of the time. So, I think he's worth rostering, especially with bye weeks starting to come in here. I think he's like a wide receiver 4 right now, and kind of a safe play if you need him, but maybe he has a touch of upside now with all these downfield targets coming out of week 2.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can see a Tiger change its stripes in 1 week. Last year, Wan'Dale Robinson caught 93 passes last year, and I think had under 350 air yards on 93 receptions, completed air yards. This year, he's caught 14 passes and already has 130 plus air yards. That is a completely different role. I'm still not sure 100% how to feel about it. This was not a player I was in drafts, but I do have to reevaluate the fact that Russell Wilson might seem to like him. And after everybody was clowning on Russell Wilson, I know they lost that game, but it wasn't entirely Russell Wilson's fault. The defense couldn't stop anybody. Russell Wilson has these players that he likes, and Wan'Dale Robinson's one of them, guys. So, yes, he should be rostered right now, no doubt about it. And I'm with Tom. I think he's more of a wide receiver 4, but we have to acknowledge that he's put out 2 consecutive usable weeks and a blow-up week in week number 2.
Yeah, for me, I think he's if you're in a start 3 wide receiver league or a multiple flex league, Wan'Dale Robinson is a really, really good player to add. I think you just have to look at this week that you've seen his best game of the season. Don't pay for last week's stats. Understand that you're using a player that has a pretty safe floor in this offense right now. And I think for certain managers, that matters a lot. I'll quickly mention Tory Horton. This is another signal type player that I think if you're looking for an upside stash at the wide receiver position, Tory Horton caught a touchdown last week. If Cooper Kupp misses time, I think Horton would have a potential ascension in that role in Seattle. But let's talk about Green Bay. Want to get your opinion on this one, where we now know Jayden Reed's going to miss all this time. Unfortunate injury, just an absolute dog. Jayden Reed was playing injured, gets injured with a new injury. It couldn't get much worse for Jayden Reed fantasy managers. But now we have Romeo Doubs, who's widely available in a lot of leagues, one of the most boring guys in fantasy, but continually a guy that's been a thorn in our side. Or guys, the siren call of Dontavian Wicks is back. We can't get away from it. We're talking about Dontavian Wicks again on the waiver wire. Would you rather take the mystery box of Wicks or the guy that you know that's going to be on the field a ton in Romeo Doubs if you had to add a Green Bay wide receiver? Start with you, Joe.
It's Dobbs. Just he led them in snap share. Obviously, the answer here is Matthew Golden, but he's not available in that number of leagues. Golden, the breakout's coming. Jordan Love just missed him for a touchdown. But
and
the answer is Dobbs.
And the deep one, Joe. He had him on that long, that could have gone to the house, maybe.
Yeah, so he had a couple of just near misses, but it's Dobbs. And if I'm playing one of these Green Bay guys, at this point, it's to get a usable week out of them. That's the way I look at it. Tucker Kraft seems to be their true number one receiver. He's the number one tight end in all of fantasy as we speak here on a Monday. But it's Romeo Dobbs for me. It just get me a usable wide receiver 3, 12, 13 points, which he can do in a PPR. With a floor of like 7 or 8, and I'm fine with that. And if he gets in the end zone, he gives you a nice week. It's boring, but it's Dobbs for me.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit team dependent for me. Like if I feel like I'm really set with like 3 or 4, close to stud wide receivers, and I'm just getting a guy for the back end of my bench, and I'm really swinging for the fences and looking for a high upside play. I think I'd go Wicks in that type of situation. We do expect him to play more here moving forward. He kind of took over the slot role in that game against the Commanders. So we've seen, obviously, Jaden Reed have a lot of success there whenever he's out in the field. And I would expect Wicks' opportunities to grow here in the upcoming weeks. And we'll see how long Reed is out of the lineup. But I think Dobbs is the safe play. If you maybe had Jaden Reed and you were using him as a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4, Dobbs would be the guy that, if I'm just looking to get by for the next couple of weeks, Dobbs is the safe play. But if I'm set at the wide receiver position and I really want to take a big swing, I would go for Dontavian Wicks, and I think you'll be able to get him for pretty cheap. I don't think you're going to have to put in a massive fab bid to get him.
Yeah, I'm going to take some shots on Wicks because I think Wicks has been, and shout out to Ryan Heath. There's a lot of like Wicks truthers out there. Last year, he was a player that I was talking about as like a number 1 waiver wire ad. We thought that he was going to take this huge step forward, sort of burned us a lot. But I'm interested in seeing what Wicks can do potentially in fantasy football. If you drafted Tucker Kraft, you might have the tight end 3 overall this year. Looks absolutely fantastic. I'll quickly mention, does anyone want to add anything on Tez Walker, who played a very limited amount of snaps, caught 2 touchdowns, or DeAndre Hopkins, or should we move on to another position?
Yeah, I'm staying away from that. I mean, Rashad Bateman is still kind of running the most routes there as the number 2 wide receiver. It just feels like, it's going to be kind of random who's the number 2 wide receiver in the Baltimore offense from week to week. So I'm not really buying any of those guys right now. I'd rather have Zay Flowers or maybe a tight end that we'll be talking about soon.
You got it, for sure. All right, guys, we talked about it in the pre-show. Let's start off with Jeremy McNichols. Austin Eckler, who's been a player that the fantasy community is just rooted for. We went through so many period of time where Austin Eckler had RB1 overall season, an RB2 overall season, led the NFL in touchdowns one season, did this all as an undrafted free agent, a guy who continually went on the air for Fantasy Football Podcast, talked about fantasy, just one of the good guys. We hate seeing him go down for the season. Everyone knows Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is going to see an increased role in this backfield, but an interesting name is Jeremy McNichols. Chris Rodriguez has been inactive back-to-back weeks, and Rodriguez doesn't really translate into any sort of the Austin Eckler role. So I'm going to leave him off to the side unless you guys disagree. But Jeremy McNichols had his moments last year for Washington. Seems like a player that Cliff Kingsbury has a little bit of confidence in, has a little bit of pass catching ability, a little bit of athleticism, a veteran journeyman. But this is an offense that's not going to be playing Green Bay every week. We think Washington's going to get on track, score some points this year. Are you interested in adding Jeremy McNichols? And then a follow-up question for both of you. How do you see Washington adjusting to losing their kind of co-RB1 in Eckler? Let's start with you, Tom.
Yeah, I'm not terribly interested in McNichols. I mean, if I'm playing in maybe a 14-team league and it's a PPR, maybe I pick him up and add him. But we did get to see this a little bit last season when Eckler missed some time. 22 rushing yards per game, and actually didn't do anything as a receiver when Eckler was out of the lineup. Just basically averaged 5 receiving yards per game. So did score 2 touchdowns, but very limited role. We know Brian Robinson was, more seasoned and, was capable of taking on a bigger workload at that time. So the big question this year is how much are they going to put on Krosky Merritt's on his plate here as a rookie, basically entering the first couple of games as a starter here, moving forward as the kind of the go-to guy. So but I'm not terribly interested. Honestly, I kind of rather take maybe a shot on Rodriguez here. There were some talk this summer that he really worked on his passing game stuff and tried to slim down a little bit. And, McNichols is a guy that's kind of bounced around the league. So if I was in a deeper format, I'd maybe just pick up Rodriguez, just kind of see how everything develops here. Bill, still needs to prove himself a little bit. He's looked good in small spurts here, but if he has a fumble or two, or if he misses some assignments, I could see them maybe lessening his workload, and maybe Rodriguez gets a better chance. So if I'm looking for just strictly upside off of the waiver wire right now, I would be looking at Rodriguez.
I'm with Tom. Like, I don't really have much interest in McNichols. I think if you're looking for somebody who's more of like, oh my God, I desperately need an RB2, McNichols is probably the better bet for now. But I think Rodriguez, who might be one of the more dropped players in all of fantasy after the first week or two, is probably worth the ad. I do anticipate that this will lead to more work for Krosky Merritt, though. I think that's the most logical outcome.
And Debo.
And Debo, yes.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think that this is I'm maybe a little bit more excited about McNichols because last year we did see him get a little bit of usage. It was his first year with the team. And I think the pass catching ability for him is something that I think would translate a little bit more. It's obviously a Krosky Merritt, but I think adding one of these two players, even though it's not necessarily something that would pay off, it's a little bit of a hedge against this coaching staff fully trusting Krosky Merritt. I think that Washington coaching staff and front office obviously loves JCM, but we are talking about a rookie. Stranger things have happened. A guy could miss a pass blocking opportunity. A guy could have a fumble. So I'm a huge Krosky Merritt bag holder. I hope I'm wrong on this one. But guys, we like to pick up these potential backup running backs when they don't cost a lot. And I think McNichols and Rodriguez, they are going to be cheap this week in a lot of leagues. I'll mention Chris Brooks, guys, because we have a lot of kind of confidence in Green Bay as a team. Chris Brooks is now up to 18.2% snap share. Emmanuel Wilson only at 6.4%. I think Chris Brooks is an interesting ad. Especially if you have Josh Jacobs, where we were trying to sift through like who's the handcuff. Marshawn Lloyd can't stay on the field, but one player who is available in a lot of leagues right now and is moving into sort of plus handcuff category is Blake Corum. Your enthusiasm level for adding Blake Corum this week, Tom?
Yeah, I would. I mean, if I'm stashing running backs right now, looking for other handcuffs here, I would be picking up Blake Corum. It's been pretty clear here through the first 2 weeks that he's the backup here behind Kyren Williams. Jarquez Hunter has been healthy scratch and out of the mix here, so I like him a lot. They actually worked him in a little bit this past week too. It was a lot of Kyren Williams, mostly in week 1, but Blake Corum got a little bit more work. I don't know if that was kind of scoreboard dependent. They were up multiple scores late in the second half, so maybe they decided that they wanted to get Corum a little bit more run and get him a little more, just get him some chances here. But he did convert a goal line opportunity. So, I think if we're looking at him, and there's nothing at running back right now. This is continuing a trend from last year. Hopefully it does continue this year, but the running back position has stayed relatively healthy here, dating back to 2024. And there's not a whole lot of options out there if you're dying at the running back position. So maybe it is time to invest in one of these handcuff types. And I think Corum is right up there with like the guy that we were talking about last week, DJ Giddens. If something does happen, we want these backfields where we think that there's going to be a bell cow role. And we know that Kyren Williams has had that bell cow role with Sean McVay, Jonathan Taylor, in Indianapolis here as well. So I do think he is one of the premier handcuffs here. So with a running back waiver wire that's pretty thin again this week, he's probably near the top of the list.
With Blake Corum, here's the quote from Sean McVay after the game. Quote, the usage was much more in alignment with how he wants the backfield to look. I'll believe that when I see it. Sean McVay has been somebody who has been a militant bell cow user, but I think it's more of a clarification that if Kyron Williams were to get hurt, Blake Corum would be that bell cow at this point.
Yeah, completely agree. It's the quality of the McVay offense and the fact that Jarquez Hunter is well behind them. Another player who during the offseason people sort of picked their horse in the race. A lot of people were going with Jarquez Hunter. A lot of enthusiasm for Hunter, but it's clearly Corum well ahead of him at this point. And maybe it's just a trend, guys, where McVay doesn't really trust these rookies. We saw it last year where there was multiple weeks where Ronnie Rivers was ahead of Blake Corum. Now we're seeing sort of the same thing where it's taking a lot for Hunter to gain the trust and enthusiasm level for McVay. Keeping this going, just a quick reminder, Tyler Algier, who has a very solid role, is available in 70% of Yahoo leagues right now. One player that I think you want to monitor just to see if he was cut. We're getting a little bit closer now to a potential return for Tyjae Spears, especially if in an IR spot. If you don't have an IR spot, though, just because of how bad the running back room is, you can always pick him up and drop him. He's available in 68% of Yahoo leagues. I'll kick it to Joe Dolan on this one because we talked about it in the pre-show. Isiah Pacheco, last week I predicted Kareem Hunt would outscore him. Can I victory lap a guy outscoring Pacheco? I think Tom Brawley also outscored Pacheco yesterday.
Yeah, that's sitting on the couch.
Yeah,
the Pacheco was they were give up plays every time they went to Pacheco for the Chiefs. Pacheco had a catch saying, so actually, no, I mean, sorry, Theo, I don't think you could victory lap this one. But
I can't.
Kareem Hunt looks better. I wonder if they're going to try to get Brashard Smith some more work going forward. I mean, we already know Kareem Hunt isn't explosive. He just kept them on schedule. I mean, really, that Chiefs offense was the Eagles and the Chiefs got into a fight in quicksand in that one. That was not a pretty game that those two were in. But Pacheco, it's looking like a big disappointment, guys. I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point.
It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, would anybody be surprised if maybe Elijah Mitchell gets opportunities in the near future too? I'm not saying to go out there and pick him up, but it would at least be on my radar because for as bad as Pacheco has looked, it's not like Kareem Hunt has been anything special as well. So these type of situations when there's multiple players disappointing at a position, sometimes we'll see coaches kind of shake things up and try to get some energy in that backfield. So if it's not Brashard Smith, maybe it is Elijah Mitchell. So I would be keeping, monitoring this backfield the next couple of weeks to see if they do try to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, you nailed it. And guys, we've seen Kansas City's offense stuck in the mud at times, but they always win the game. So it's like Andy Reid never really changes anything. But now they're 0-2 on the season, completely stuck in the mud. Maybe there's a little bit of self-scouting. I think Kareem Hunt has a little bit more to him than Pacheco. Brashard Smith, we really liked him as a prospect, 7th round pick. Mitchell, I think just adding a potential change player, they cannot be at like a horrible record and have Rashee Rice rescue their offense. Xavier Worthy should be back next week or possibly the following week. Looks like he's going to play with a shoulder harness. But this running game is so ugly right now. Really, really in bad shape, this Kansas City offense. Let's talk about and Isiah Pacheco, if you're in a really shallow format, guys, he could be a sabotage drop type player. It'd have to be very, very shallow, but I don't see him recovering, giving you a lot. But a player who's another potential sabotage drop, Mark Andrews. 2 catches, 2 games, guys. We're not going to talk about Andrews too much, but let's talk about Isaiah Likely. Is Isaiah Likely the biggest low-key winner in fantasy through 2 weeks of football? Tom, we talked about this before. It looks like this could be Isaiah Likely comes back and just immediately is the starting tight end.
Yeah, they have to do something here. I mean, it's been a disaster here through 2 weeks for Mark Andrews. And last season, he saved things a little bit in the second half of the year just with his receiving touchdowns, but he was a little bit of a declining player then. And He's getting off to a very rough start here. So likely did get back to a practice on Friday, got a limited practice. And a lot of times we'll see this with, players that have a really long layoff. They like to get the guys out on a Friday, get them out moving around, get them used to that routine again before they get some full practices in the following week. So, it's not guaranteed that likely plays this week, but I would think that his return is within the next 2 weeks. So this offense needs a little bit of life at the tight end position, and likely, this is the guy that's trying to get a new contract and wants to be paid like one of the better tight ends in the league. So he's got a lot of motivation here, and guy that's not really, at least in Yahoo leagues, which is a wide variety of leagues. He's widely available in a lot of Yahoo leagues at just 13% owned. So maybe he can become the number 2 receiver here. This Baltimore offense looks like a train. They're just destroying everybody here. Derrick Henry didn't even do anything in week 2, and they still put up 41 points against the Browns. So we want pieces of this offense, and maybe likely can develop into that number 2 receiver here after a few games once he gets back from this foot injury.
I'm just wondering if you're ever going to be comfortable starting Mark Andrews again.
Never.
Like, when are you going to be comfortable with it? Some of the names we've talked about here on the pod in the last couple of weeks: Juwan Johnson, Harold Fannin, now Isaiah Likely, Brenton Strange we talked about. I trust all of these guys right now over Mark Andrews, and it's a start these other guys sight unseen. So that alone makes Isaiah Likely worth a pickup.
Yeah, I'd rather have Likely, straight up. If I'm rostering Andrews right now, I would be dropping him for Isaiah Likely if he was out my waiver wire.
Yeah, and one other tight end to talk about. We talked about this player 2 weeks ago in our preseason, 3 weeks ago in our preseason waiver wire conversation. This was and you guys mentioned, Tom, you mentioned the big comeback from the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young played well in the second half of the game. We saw Teteroa McMillan continue to shine, 10 targets yesterday, 19 through 2 weeks. But Jatavian Sanders was a player that the three of us talked about, has a sort of the kind of pedigree and profile that we've seen break out in fantasy football. Very quiet week 1, but a very strong 9 targets on Sunday, had 7 catches for 54 yards. Are we interested in adding Jatavian Sanders? And I'll add a little caveat here. Jalen Coker on the IR, and Xavier Legette is awful. Not to throw shade at him, but pretty awful player. Some shockingly low production for Xavier Legette. So does JT Sanders have a chance to go from like week 2 here, and then a couple weeks from now we're like, why didn't we add him? Especially with a light waiver wire week. I think he's interesting. Start out with you, Tom.
Yeah, I think he's worth a look, especially if you're in a tight end premium format, or if he's not owned in that, or even in a 14-team league. I do still worry. It's a lot. Tommy Tremble is still playing a lot next to him. It was a breakaway game script too. They were throwing it a ton to try to get back into that game. They had the early fumble and scoop and score for the Arizona Cardinals. So they were chasing points that entire game. But that's also going to happen a lot for the Carolina Panthers this year. They're looking once again like one of the league's worst teams. So there's going to be a lot of weeks where they're playing from behind. So Sanders made some plays for this offense. They need to stop throwing the ball to Xavier Legette. I hate to say it, but the guy is just not developed as the first round pick from last year. So you need to get the ball into your best player's hands. So Sanders is certainly worth a look. And just touching on Coker there a little bit, if you're really hurting a wide receiver, I think now might be the time to pick him up too. If he's able to come back by week 5, I think he's going to be heavily involved in this passing game. This has been a real struggle for this offense. So they need to get, players making plays outside of Tet McMillan. So Sanders and Legette are worth a look.
Joe, any thoughts on JT Sanders?
I'm with Tom in that if he's out there, I think I'd rather pivot to Jalen Coker. If maybe he wasn't drafted, or you had your draft after his injury and he's on the waiver wire, you don't have an IR spot, I think that's probably the more prudent play here. I think Jatavian Sanders is going to be one of those guys who we probably are going to rank between like tight end 12 and tight end 20 every single week at fantasy points. And every single guy, you can make an argument for them in any of the other spots. And those are kind of annoying guys to have from a fantasy football perspective. So talented player. I think he has a role in this offense, but I'd rather pivot to Jalen Coker. And it's very obvious that Tyrone McMillan is somebody you can basically not even take out of a lineup right now. Who's going to be the number 2 there? I would lean more towards Coker.
Yeah, I think that's probably correct. Especially tight end premium, prioritize Sanders. If you're not tight end premium, he's going to end up being a headache for you a lot of weeks. Make sure that you are checking out fantasypoints.com. Tom drops one of the most comprehensive waiver wire articles around. I'm also writing a waiver wire article looking at sleepers, looking at high stakes additions. We've got you covered every which way on the waiver wire at Fantasy Points to help you crush your leagues this season. If you're listening to this show on the Fantasy Football Daily podcast, make sure you're also subscribed to Fantasy Points YouTube, the fastest growing YouTube channel in fantasy anywhere. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor. Also subscribe to some of our podcasts. It costs you nothing. It helps us out a lot. We're going to see you back here multiple times this week, Fantasy Football Daily, right here on Fantasy Points YouTube. Graham Barfield on the Start Sit Show. Dave Kluge joining me on a guest show. We're everywhere at Fantasy Points. We're going to help you crush your leagues this season.